this young man here that I met when you relocated, right, San Antonio.
Correct.
And I did not know James and you're originally from Chicago, right? And we had a handful of assignments that year. And
Yes.
we've been having a handful of assignments that we're kind of in different places now in our officiating careers. But nevertheless, I met this guy and we started working a few games. And the first thing that I liked about him was he reminded me of John Franklin. Okay, for those of you that remember John Franklin, same demeanor, very calm demeanor, a faith-based guy, a family guy, a guy that really talked more about taking care of his family with his primary job than officiating, you know, and just little things that came to my attention about James Ford that I said to myself, and early in my officiating career, someone actually described how do you become really a competent and credible basketball official. You really have to have a pretty strong foundation, not only in your upbringing with your parents, but then your entire life career, and you have to maintain kind of that balance, and James just exhibited that from the moment I met him. As a basketball official, you always want to be with big guys like this. Right? Look, I mean, yeah, I stand next to James. Don't stand next to him. But he's a very good basketball official. He's been around the game. He's a great field for that. But he also has, I think, the strongest characteristics of his game is he has a very good presentation with players. Players buy this guy. He gets players on his side. Players come and hand him the ball. Just because of his personality, he's able to communicate effectively with those kids at every level. And so he is now starting to, and no surprise to me, he is now starting to see his officiating career going up. And he has a lot of these, we would say, far more games ahead of him than you and I have in front of us. We have more games behind us. But he's now starting to achieve great success. He probably works in multiple consortiums because that's how we operate now at the collegiate level. He works in major Division I men's basketball conferences like the SEC and I guess you're in the Big 12 consortium. And so the point here is that he's officiating now at a very high level. And what he's going to offer you tonight is things that really just translate into your game, whatever level that is, however many years you have, right? Doesn't really matter because all of what he's going to say can apply to the seventh grade game, to an SEC game. And
Wow. Thank you. I didn't expect all that, I'll tell you that. Ruben and I, like he said, we go way back, so we've been through many, many games together. One thing he didn't mention is I learned a lot from Ruben after moving here from Chicago and beginning to work with him. I was early on in my Division I career when I moved here from Chicago, and Ruben was one of the first individuals, one of the first people I met, and one of the guys I worked with most often. And so he contributed a lot to my success. He didn't mention that, but he definitely contributed a lot to my success and mentorship. One thing I will say tonight, I want to briefly touch on what I consider to be my 4 pillars of officiating, things that lead to success. Now, I've had conversations with guys, multiple guys, partners throughout the Division I level, and in one way, shape, or form, guys typically have a few different fundamentals or things that they believe in or things that they stick to that have gotten them to where they feel have gotten them to where they're at, and is going to get them to where they aspire to go. And so these are the 4 pillars that I have. It's nothing new, right? I'm not the type of guy who's going to reinvent the wheel. I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel. So some of what I'm about to say, you guys probably have heard. I'm sure there'll be a couple things that you probably haven't heard. Take it, use it. If not, it's up to you. As Ruben said, I've sat in, I'm working, I think, 3 consortiums now. And so there's a lot of information that is shared in the SEC consortium and the Big 12 consortium. So some of this will come from that. I've stolen from those guys. So one thing I want to say first and foremost is that it's important that we as officials, or you as an official who's aspiring to continue to go up, set goals for yourself. be honest about what you want, and what you're willing to put the work in for, right? How much time are you willing to commit to this craft? So often I see guys expecting a $1 million schedule, if you will, but only willing to put in $1,000 worth of work and effort and preparation in this craft, right? And so I think first and foremost, you have to be real with yourself. I'm from Chicago. When I first started officiating, there was one guy in particular. He's probably top 3 official I've ever seen to this day, but all he wanted to do was work the top men's basketball rec leagues in Chicago, and that's what he did, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And so that's one thing I would challenge you guys to do if you haven't done already. Set goals for yourself, keep track for your goals, because otherwise you're just wishing and you're hoping. All right. In terms of these 4 pillars to officiating, the first, and this is in no particular order, but the first I would say is rules knowledge. Right? I mean, here's the rules guy right here. Right? He just gave you guys every year. This is my 3rd year here. The rule guy, obviously he's sharp, he's on it, but in my opinion, rules are a non-negotiable. Right? You have to know your rules. Right? But being in a rule book, the case book, you guys have a case book okay. Rules book, case book, and I would even go as far as to say mechanics manual. You have to live in those things, right? Rules, in my opinion, provide the opportunity for better communication, right? Better communication with coaches, players, table crew, your partners, et cetera. And I said it provides the opportunity, right? Because if you don't know the rules, then that opportunity is lost.
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing to that. Is just think about it, right? And you've seen it because now we're starting to see more and more the evolution of having to go to there's a courtside monitor, right? And so the referee has to come and tell the national audience or the audience in the arena what just happened, right? And so by getting into the rule book, as James is saying, think of the confidence that you have to have, but the knowledge that you have to have, right? And even at your level, high school level, to walk up to that coach and to start by saying by rule, and you know it, right? Just as those 2 work by rule, coach. That by rule, he was the first one to come in, or Calvin was talking. You got first to touch. By rule, coach, he was the first to touch, and that's a violation by rule, right? Your credibility as an official will go so far up with that coach that it's undeniable. But you can't get there. To James's point, it's getting you the opportunity to have that communication with the coach. And it all starts by getting into the vocal. So don't minimize this pillar that James is talking about.
No, it's good. I mean, look, I'll be completely honest, 100% honest with you guys. Early on in my career, even as I started out in Division I was not a rules guy. I barely looked at the rule book. In the past several years, obviously, I've dove into the rule book, and I will never say I'm the rule guy. Some of those guys at our level consider themselves the rule guys. I'll never say that, but I definitely frequently look at and study rules, and I can tell you without fail, the level of confidence, to the point that Ruben said, the level of confidence that you have if you know the rules, I mean, nothing really exceeds it, in my opinion. It's shown through your demeanor. It's shown in the way you officiate. Coaches recognize it. Players recognize it. And so I can't harp on that enough. Yeah. The second thing, any questions? This is kind of informal. So if you guys got any questions or any comments from you guys, from other staff members, Bill, anything you guys want to add? Sure.
When you study your rules, what is a more effective way for you to study?
Me personally, good question. Me personally, what I like to do, I've heard several different ways, but me personally, what I like to do is I go through the case book and I'm reading cases, right? I'm not looking at the answers. I'm reading the case, and then I'm trying to answer it myself, and then I'm reading the answer, right? So that's me personally. That's kind of what I do. I use the case book first and foremost, and then If I get the rule right, I get the rule right. If I don't get the rule right, or if there's something there that I'm not familiar with, then I'll see where it's referenced, because it's referenced in the casebook, right? And then then that's when I'm going to the rule book and I'm reading the rule book. So that's kind of how I do it. I read the scenarios. I'm a visual person, so the rule book, or the casebook allows me to more visualize it, right? When I'm reading that play and kind of what's transpiring, I'm able to kind of see that and picture that in my head. And as a visual person, that works best for me. So that's the way I do it. I know guys who just they just sit down and all they do is just read the rule book, right? Don't even go to the case book, but they just read the rule book. And if that works for you, that's great. I do that sometimes. It's not to say I'll never do it, but I personally initially start with the case book and I'm reading cases and trying to answer those prior to looking at the answer or going into the rule book. Good question. The second pillar that I have is communication. Look, I think it was on the slide, Kelvin, that you had up. So, I mean, it speaks to the importance. I mean, it's one of the most important functions of our job. I got a quote I heard at our SEC consortium that was used that I really like it. It was by Bernard Baruch, who was a very popular financier who advised multiple United States presidents. And he said, most of the successful people I've known are the ones who do more listening than talking. Right? Self-explanatory. When you communicate, a couple things that I have written down, use your words to calm, direct, or explain. Ruben just gave a perfect example with the rule explanation and kind of how the demeanor is when you talk. How are you communicating with coaches, players, other refs, security, arena workers, etc.? Because people are watching. One of our consortiums, I heard the story just this past year. One of our consortiums hired a few guys into, it was a top tier league in this particular consortium. I won't say which league, but they hired a few guys for the first time. They brought them on staff, brought them up to this new league. So what they did, they had a meeting and they said, we're meeting at this hotel, similar to this. We're meeting at this hotel. Everyone needs to check in at the front desk and get their key before coming to the meeting room, like we're sitting in here. But what they did is they recorded all the officials who had just been hired. They recorded them when they came to the desk. And what they had the front desk person do is, I don't know where your key's at, it's gonna be another hour, it's gonna be another hour and a half. And they look to see just kind of that touches on personality, humility, but just how did that person communicate? How did they communicate with that person at that front desk? And you had, the gamut of reactions that you could probably imagine, right? You had people who are like, oh, you know what? That's fine. I totally get it. Everyone makes a mistake. But there was one person in particular who just completely berated the person at the front desk. Just the communication, just the verbiage that we used, everything was just completely inappropriate. And so they all gather in the meeting room like this, and they put it up, and needless to say, that person is no longer on that staff, in that consortium at all, let alone on that staff working that conference. So it's just an example to show just the importance of communication and how you communicate with everyone, because whether you know it or not, people are watching. People are watching. So, and then I have nonverbal communication speaks loudest. Right? Be aware of facial expressions, gestures, eye contact, your tone of voice. To be better at communicating, it's vital that you are aware of your body language and your nonverbal cues from others. I'll give you an example. So that's an area where I struggle. I'll be completely honest. I struggle with nonverbal communication, right? I had a game this year, and so we have a coach in this league, and he's actually bigger than I am, and he's known as a guy who likes to project. He likes to yell across the court at officials. I had never had him prior to the season. So you hear, I've heard all the stories about this guy, and as luck would have it, it was the semifinals of the NIT tournament this year. I got selected to work the game. And so I go in with this guy, and I'm like, yeah, I've heard the story. This guy not talking to me like that. He's not doing it. And there was a play where I had a foul, and I'm walking to the table, and this guy's like, he's coming at me. Right? He's standing in his box because that conversation took place before the game started. So he's standing in his box, but he's at me. And I guess I don't even realize I did it, but the look, I guess, that I gave him before I said what I said, TV cameras were right on my face, right? And so I get to the locker room at halftime, and I'm not kidding, I probably had 8 text messages about, dude, you look like you're about to tear his head off. And so, and I didn't even realize it, right? And so personally, like I said, that's an area that I need to get better. That's an area that I'm working on. But nonverbal communication speaks the loudest. It speaks the loudest. So make sure you're aware of that. Anything, Ruben, you want to add on communication up to this point?
I do want to just remember that having people can have people motivated, right? And so don't minimize those game managers or those game administrators or the security guy or the scorer, the timer. How do you treat them? How do you communicate with them? You want people when you walk into the gym to say, "Oh, you know what, Jane Ford here, man, it's going to be good." Right. You don't want them to have the reaction that that guy that berated that hotel. That's an interesting story there.
It is.
But it's somewhat, it was a test. It was a test and he failed.
Miserably.
It's all about that. If he's berating the hotel operator, he's probably going to berate the guy that can't open the door of the locker. And that's not what you want to represent
Yeah.
your consortium, your conference. And if you're the crew chief, your crew is an embarrassment to your teammates or to you as a team leader. So don't minimize that point they made as it relates to being nice and respectful. And it's okay to say thank you and please and no sir and yes sir. It'll go a long way for you in your officiating career.
Thank you. So what I do, I mean, you guys can see I'm wearing scrubs. So my day job is I work for, I'm in biopharmaceutical sales. So we use a lot of different sales tactics and things when we're talking to doctors and prescribers and so on and so forth. So some of that translates into what I do here. So one of the things I got, I think it came from the National Institute of Health or something, but it was interesting because it talked about trust factors in high stress situations. And so I think it's fair to say we sometimes find ourselves in high stress situations, right? And it listed a few things in terms of when you're in high stress situation, these are things that elicit trust from those individuals. In our case, it'd probably be the coaches that we're talking to in these situations. But the number one thing it said was listening, caring, showing empathy and compassion. 50% of the respondents or individuals responded to this as this is someone who I can trust, right? Number one, 50% of individuals listening, caring, empathy, and compassion. And then competence and expertise, which again, that goes to the whole rule of knowledge conversation, competence and expertise. 20% honesty and openness, and then various other factors after that. But again, it just kind of highlights the importance of speaking with empathy and being compassionate to individuals, right? Another thing I'll say that's kind of work related that I use that we learn in our sales role is the value of certain words. So they give us this guide and it has certain words and kind of a point system attributed to each word. So you have the positive words, and words like thank you might be worth 50 points, and words like no or some of the other negative words are actually negatives. And so I've taken the list and I use some of those words, but one word I use in particular this year, for me, it works for me, I don't know, is the word fair. Right? And so we're not always going to agree with coaches. They obviously clearly are not going to always agree with us. But what I found that works for me, the word fair it's a positive word, but when there's a disagreement to a call or something like that, listen to the coach, hear the coach out. Coach, I completely hear you, and I think that's fair, right? However, it worked wonders for me this year, but try to think of like positive words that you guys can use. Even though you don't agree, studies have shown that when you're using positive words and the verbiage that you use is positive, then those coaches are going to be much more willing and able to accept what it is you're saying. So just a piece of information that I find works for me at my day job and then also in officiating this past season. The third pillar I have is fitness, right? How do you look? How do you want to look? What are coaches and players' perceptions when they see you come out on the floor? Because perception is reality, right, in their minds. And be honest with yourself as well. Commit to diet and exercise, especially leading up to and throughout the season, right? So what that looks like for me personally is I have 2 young daughters, they're 8 and 10, and they call me the Cookie Monster. Because I love cookies, right? So I'm not eating cookies during the basketball season. Outside the basketball season, I'm eating probably more cookies than I should. But me personally, I'm working out a few times a week. My diet's not as tight as it is during the season. But one thing that I know about me and my body and how I work is at least 6 weeks prior to the start of the season, I'm going hard. Like everything is shutting down. And typically for college basketball, we start the first Monday of every November. So this year is going to be November 3rd. I already know right now, September 22nd or earlier is my D-Day, right? That's that Monday, literally 6 weeks before the start of the season. My whole diet is completely getting shut down. I'm probably going from 3 days to 5 days a week working out. But I'm committing that much to see, I don't look like that right now. But I'm turning it on. I'm completely committing to my fitness because you know the guys, and I'm sure it's no different, all levels. You guys know the guys and girls who show up and use the first part of the season to get in shape, right? And the coaches are able to see it, and the players are able to see it. And so, no, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. So, commit.
You're exposing yourself to possible injury.
Yeah.
You're not conditioned, right? You do a lot of start and stop.
And it allows you to be, fitness also allows you to be in a better position to see plays too. The case can certainly be made. I know even, at the collegiate level, and I'm sure as it to you guys as well, pertains to you all as well, whether you want to believe it or not, coaches have a little influence in postseason assignments and who works their games and who doesn't work their games. I've seen and heard of many instances where coaches have specifically requested that guys not work the Big 12 tournament or the SEC tournament, whatever it may be, because, hey, this guy can barely get up the court and get in position to see plays, right? That's something that you can control. We say a lot in my day job, one of the things we say a lot is control the controllables. That's something we can control, right? And then anything you want to add on that?
No, just on the conditioning thing, and it's the optics. And a lot of you guys hear me say that word a lot. It's just how do you, when you walk in, and you see official looks like that, right? Or you see an official that is a little overweight and has that wrap, right? That's not what you want. So don't minimize the fitness thing. It's do you look the part to be able to run up and down the floor with these young kids who are getting bigger, stronger, faster every year.
It's fact.
And you're not in shape and you haven't done what James started on September 26th. Stop eating.
22nd.
Here, me. Stop eating breakfast tacos. Limit yourself to just 2 tortillas a day. Then you're going to find yourself in a compromising position, and you're not going to look the part, right? So take it seriously, and this is a very good point.
I mean, to your point, you said it too. The players are bigger, faster, stronger at the high school level and at the college level. Some of these high school kids I've seen are freaks of nature. I had a humbling experience this past year. I thought I was fast, and we had a turnover, and I was going from trail to lead, and I'm hauling, I'm getting it right. In my opinion, this kid just blows right past me. So. And then I have to pull up so I can kind of see, find an open look. But yeah, I mean, fitness is huge. And then the last thing, which fitness kind of touches on, is positioning, right? It improves as a result of good fitness. I have on here first. If you're not in good shape, chances are you're not going to be able to get, in many cases, to the proper position to get the call correct. And in our business of officiating, play calling is paramount. It's of the utmost importance, right? Separates the good from the average from the bad. Drastically increases open looks and increases call accuracy. Once in a good position, I got this from. So in the SEC Consortium, they did a presentation that I liked, and it said, once in a good position, use the OODA loop, OODA, which is basically a technique that was created by, he was a United States Air Force colonel, John Boyd, and he trained fighter pilots. And so this was a process that he used to train fighter pilots to be able to make decisions quickly, right, and accurately. And so the first O is observe, right, where you develop an awareness about the changing circumstance of the play. And I'm putting this in our lingo, about the play. The second O is orient, is where you reposition and prepare yourself to act, to actually act. The D is decide, where you determine whether it's appropriate to act or not. And then finally, A is act, you pull the trigger, right? And so what I think of when I hear that, for purposes of what we do, is let's say you're at the lead position. You and your peripheral, you see that the guard has started a drive from the top of the key, right? So now you've observed that, right? First, as that play comes to you, you have to orient or reposition yourself accordingly, right? If you're pinching the paint too closely, maybe there's some situation going on with the post players that cause you to kind of move in a little bit. But once you see that, reposition yourself or orient yourself. It may make sense now to take a step back or have a step back, so you're widening your view, right? And then D, decide. Now he's at the basket, there's contact. Now you have to decide, is that incidental contact? We say marginal, but incidental contact, or is that illegal contact? Right? So now you have to make that decision, and then finally, if you determine that that's illegal contact, then you act by putting a whistle on it. And so that's something that was shared with us last year, and something that I try to incorporate in my decision making, because like we said, these players are getting bigger, they're getting faster, they're getting stronger. There are a lot more bang plays at the high school level, at the college level. And so when you can get that thought process and train yourself to think that way, I think the game will slow down just a little bit, or just enough to allow you to be a lot more effective and a lot more accurate in your play calling. So, Ruben, anything?
No, just the whole thing about the positioning is, remember that there's no magic spot on the floor, right? I mean, you just use James. I'm surprised somebody actually beat you, bro. But okay, so
He beat me.
but you heard what he said. What he did, he adjusted and said, "Wow, this guy just blew by me. Now where do I get?" He slowed down to see where can I get an open look, because I know I'm beat. I can't get out in front except the play. So now I got to get in a position to trail the play, even though I'm trail lead, so that I can determine whether or not that's going to be illegal or incidental contact. And so the point there is that when you're talking about positioning, there's just, I mean, it's a certainty. You're going to have to move. You're going to have to position adjust. Don't lean, don't look, don't move your body, right? And then you just have to do sometimes what James did on that fast break. You just have to adjust and ask yourself, how can I position myself to get the best open look at potential illegal contact, to see the whole play from start to finish? If you can if you can kind of process that as you're running, right, then you're probably going to have your play accuracy go up, right? And then it goes back to all the other things he was talking about. Well, you're not going to be able to get in position if you're not in shape. Yeah. You're not going to be in position or basically make a judgment on illegal or incidental if you don't know what the rule is, right? So it's all a buildup, man. It's all a compounding kind of thing. You got to think about all of those things that will make you a more credible official, that separate the good from the great, right, or the average from the better. And so you got to kind of think about that. So because today, I mean tomorrow, when we're doing the games, most of our conversations with all of you are going to be about positioning and coverage and your rotation mechanics, and are you buying into the system and trusting your partner? And you can only do that and achieve that with proper positioning on the floor. So this is great stuff, James. Maybe we should just kind of open up for questions.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. Any questions or comments or anything? Guys ready to go?
Yeah, they're ready to go.
I'm not mad. Overall, just in general, I've been officiating for now 13 years. First college, Division I. First college, I was working D3 leagues back in Chicago first, and so that was 2 years in. Yeah. So I started personally. So I played college basketball, never really got hurt with the exception of like a sprained ankle here and there, and graduated college and started playing in men's rec leagues in Chicago. I call them reckless leagues. And I literally broke my kneecap in half, playing in the rec league. So that put me down for a year. Then I came back, started playing again, and I tore my shoulder. I had to have surgery on my shoulder. And so one of the referees at the in the rec league was like, "Man, you should referee." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm never refereeing." And I was younger, and so he goes, "Man, we're making $50 a game. I'm working 4 games a night." And I'm like, all right. So that's how I started. So I started refereeing that way, and then I did some Chicago, high school stuff, and then Division III and Division II. Yeah. Yeah.
What works for you as a family, and what are some techniques that you use to balance family and your season or your officiating while you're in season? Because you're on the road a lot.
Yeah.
So how do you balance, or what works for you as a family? Balance family and officiating.
Right. That's a really good question. I would say probably first and foremost is communication, and just being completely honest with I got a wife and I have 2 young daughters who probably I was going more this past season than I've ever been. Like, I've really been blessed this past season with my scheduling and everything. And so my daughters, they let me hear it a lot more than what they're used to. But for me personally, I mean, my job is not that big a deal because I'm in sales. So it provides me the flexibility. But more than anything, just kind of level setting the expectations for my wife and for my kids, being completely open and honest with them on what potentially could happen, what my schedule may look like. We all have access to the same calendar, so they're able to see my schedule. They're able to see and sometimes I'll put TBD on there if there's an assignment that's pending. I may get a call from a supervisor and say, "Hey, I'm looking at putting you on this game." All that stuff's going on the calendar. So just total and complete transparency and honest communication is what I found to work best for me. We're traveling a lot, so the hours are crazy depending on what part of the country that you're in. And so I personally always make it a point to, I got a couple things on my phone that, reminders that pop up. And so I'm constantly calling home and checking in. I got 3 girls at home too. So that's, being a guy, that's a bit of concern for me, having them there by themselves. And so I'm constantly calling and checking in. But yeah, I'd say probably more than anything, just upfront communication and full transparency more than anything. And I give her credit. My wife is very understanding. Anytime I go to San Diego for a San Diego State game or what have you, from time to time, the location, she'll try. Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, "You biting into the game feed?" I don't care. But yeah.
You ain't buying 2 tickets to Rio Grande Valley.
No, she don't care about coming out here. She's like, "I see you when you get back." Yeah. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, early in your career, what did you focus on the most, and what mistakes did you make that you wish you could have avoided?
No, good question. So I'd say one of the biggest mistakes I made was just not taking this seriously early on. Not having true goals, just going out there every day, just thinking I was gonna get by because I looked pretty good when I was younger. Like 10, 12 years ago, I looked better than I look now. And I just, and so people were telling, "Oh man, you look great, you're this, and you like the players." And so I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. I didn't really set true goals. I wasn't really in the rule book. I think if I had done those things, if I had taken the advice of, people like some of the people you guys have here this weekend early on, I think I'd probably be in a much better situation. It's still working out for me, but I think if I had listened and I had applied myself earlier and been more committed, I think I'd be a little bit farther than I am now. In terms of what was the second part?
What did you focus on early in your career?
Well, once I decided to get it together, I would say probably rules. I put a lot of emphasis on rules. In our business, I think understanding that not everybody's going to be happy for you is something you have to be willing to accept, and keep your. I don't want to say be silent, but I'm not a very vocal person when I'm like in those settings, like locker room settings. Like I'm a pretty private person, and so, Yeah, I would say those things. Yeah. Anybody else?
Just one thing on the family thing, you know, I started out talking about making sure that you keep your family a priority. And one of the things that I do, especially because I mean, I'm really blessed right now because my wife goes with me just about every place. She goes to games many times. And while my kids are grown, my grandkids are not grown. And so there will be many games where I will have grandkids that are at the game spending time because, you know, they may not even know what's going on, but they love spending time with the family at the games, watching the games, cheering, meeting the cheerleaders. I've had the opportunity to have kids go to the state tournament and, you know, watch the state tournament, have my son at the state tournament, when he was out of high school at the time, but, you know, just getting the family involved. And I have pictures and everything else that I can even show you about the excitement that, well, their grandkids now, but the grandkids have just going to the game. Even if one of the big things is they get to hit the concession stand, or they met a cheerleader, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But just watch the smile on their face.
Yeah.
Watch the smile on their face, because it's so important for you to make sure you include and take care of that family. If you can get them to go with you 3-4 times a year, that's a lot, and they'll never forget.
Yeah. Go ahead.
5 months through 11.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. I'll piggyback. That's a great point. I'll piggyback on that. I didn't realize it, but so my wife, she sent me videos of I have some TV games, and she turned the TV on, and my daughters absolutely lost their mind. And so one of my goals, and I didn't really realize that they even cared that much, but they do. And so one of my goals this season is to take, well, my 8-year-old's a diva, but my 10-year-old for sure, take her with me a couple of times on some games, on some road trips, assuming it doesn't interfere with school. But one thing the gentleman in the back that asked the question, one thing I just thought of, one thing that I did that worked out really well for me is I aligned myself with the proper people as well. Like get a mentor, get somebody that who's been where you're trying to go, right? Someone whose opinion you value, someone who is respected in what we do in our industry, and try to align yourself with someone or, you know, a couple people like that. That helped me out tremendously, having some people to kind of bounce some things off of. As you move up, if that's your aspiration, and even at this level, you're going to come up. They're just because the situation's inevitable. Situations are going to arise where you got to make some tough decisions, right? And so having that group of individuals that you respect and who may have been where you're trying to go to bounce things off of, that was huge for me. And then also just having a peer group, you know, for me, I got 3 guys that I work with at this level who we are extremely tight. We are extremely close. Like we truly are hoping for the best for each one of us. We communicate often, whether it's through text. We're clipping and sending plays to one another and providing honest feedback, right? I'm telling dude, you suck. That was a terrible call. Like we're, you know, jokingly, but honestly. So yeah, those 2 things I would definitely say: align yourself with a mentor or mentors, a couple people who've been where you're trying to get and who are well respected and opinions matter. And then, you know, your peers as well. Get a few people that are going to keep you and hold you accountable. So I just thought of that. Oh, what?
Is it still fun?
Oh, it's a blast, man.
Like, you know, sometimes it gets, I can imagine the travel gets, I can imagine all the adversity we face as officials, you know?
Yeah.
We're always a bad guy in the room.
No,
You know, like, is it still fun for you?
it is. It's a blast, man. I really do enjoy it. And it's funny because my wife asked me, she's like, how long do you think, not that she wants me to stop, but she's like, how much longer do you think you're going to referee? And I honestly don't know because I'm still having so much fun doing it. like you said, there are things that I dislike about. That's going to be everything, right? Everything has its idiosyncrasies. There are going to be some things that I dislike, and there are going to be some things. But right now, for me personally, the positives far outweigh the negatives. I like to travel. I like to see new places. I like to communicate with new people. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love it, man. Just the camaraderie that I have with my peers, guys that I'm working with, because, we're with different crews almost every night. So just getting to meet those individuals and see different places. And, yeah, it's fun. I truly do enjoy it. Yeah. And when that's no longer the case, then I'll shut it down. That's what I told my wife. Like, I'm not in a situation, I'm blessed to the point where I'm not in a situation where I have to referee, right, at this level, like some guys do. And so when it's truly not fun and I'm not enjoying it anymore, I'll shut it down. But no, I love it. I still love it. I still enjoy it.
Kelly had a question.
No, I was just going to piggyback on stuff that he said, and I can relate because that man right there, and I wish Reggie was sitting next to him, told me a long time ago, stop playing in the men's leagues. Everything that you said was hitting home.
No, so
Stop playing in the men's leagues. It's a wreck. Come on a rep, and then finally Reggie, not so nice words, said basically you're playing for a T-shirt, but an ACL is going to cost more than that T-shirt.
yeah.
And it hit. And I started late. I started when I was 30. Had I started when he first started telling me to stop playing, I'm already ascending. My schedule took off this year, which is something I got to work a game with that man right there. It was probably one of the best free games I've ever had. Like, I've seen work with Ruben on the high school level, work with the collegiate game with him, really stuck with me. And we got to talk about that game at some point. But everything he's saying, especially to you and Zay, and any younger person who's playing in these leagues, like, what are you getting out of it? You're gonna hurt yourself. Then you're ascending now. Take advice from people that have been here. Everything that he's saying.
No, I miss it. I miss it. The neat thing, I hadn't started, but I still was playing. I started to referee when I did what I did to my shoulder. I tore my, it was called a slap tear, but I had begun to referee, and so I gotten blessed to the point where I worked for 3 years officiating high school rec leagues, and I did 1 year in Division III. And my first year going to a Division I camp, I got hired by Curtis Shaw. I don't know if you guys remember Curtis Shaw. He ran the Big 12 and all that. So Curtis hired me my first year. I was still playing, I was still hooping, and that's when this happened. And I'll never forget, he told me, he said, you got to make a decision. He said, because I can tell you, I probably got about at least 50 guys right now that I can just plug right in your spot. And that's when, after I had this surgery, it was over. That dream was over, that whatever that was I was doing. So, yeah, I agree. If you're serious, you may want to think about that. So, could have cost me. It didn't, but it could have. So, yes.
Like the bigger picture, there's a lot of officials that is very competitive, right? Those that strive to officiate men's D1 basketball. That's big time. What advice would you all give, like James, Ruben, right? Some of the other ones that we have here that have experience. Is there like a location? There's a lot of officials that attend numerous D1 camps for so many years, and after a while, they're like, man, next year I think I'm almost there. Next year I think I'm almost there, and that time never comes.
Right.
When do you know when to? Is there a direct yes or no? Does there come a point in time where these camps will tell you, thank you, but no thank you, or you need to, or keep firing away for 20 years, 30 years, you never know, or what advice do you all give? Is Texas a good location to pursue D1 men's basketball, or do you need to travel to another location throughout the country that might be better position for you? Because there's so many conferences and there's so many, right?
Yeah. I think it's a good question. It's a really good question. I think it depends on who you ask. You're going to get different answers. For me personally, my opinion is that to answer your last question, yes, Texas is a great place to officiate, to be an official, to get in Division I. You have access, because of where Texas is located, you have access to two of the major consortiums, college consortiums. You got the Big 12 consortium, And then you have obviously the SEC consortium. So Texas is a great place to be. And you're kind of centrally located, even though you're south, you're kind of centrally located as it pertains to the rest of the country. The other part of your question, I would say, I think that is where the importance of having that individual I was telling about, or individuals to talk to and bounce things off of, who are going to be 100% honest with you. I had a couple individuals that I had like that who were working higher Division I, and so I call them sponsors, guys who would provide invaluable feedback, honest feedback, but then at the same time were advocating for me as well, right? I think kind of where we're at now, you almost have to, I mean, you let me know if you disagree, but I think you almost have to have somebody who's willing to be an advocate for you if you aspire to get to the Division I level in some way, shape, or form. So the sooner you can kind of attach yourself or create that relationship with someone, I think the better your chances are. I can tell you, man, I know guys, even still, you know, there was a camp in Phoenix last week, I want to say, maybe a week or 2 weeks ago. There was a camp in Phoenix, and I was talking to one of the guys out there, one of the clinicians out there, and he's like, man, you know, there's a couple of Chicago guys down here, and he's running off names, and I'm like, dude, he was trying to get into Division I like 20 years ago. He's still coming. I mean, he never got the message, right? And someone, I mean, he either never asked or someone never just, you know, was honest with him. And so to answer your question, some people will just let you come 4, 5, 6 times, paying $600 a pop before they tell you, or before you get the picture. So I would say probably more than anything is just, you know, it just speaks to the importance of aligning yourself. Continue to do all of these things, I think, but then also aligning yourself with someone who's going to be willing to help you out in that regard and be an advocate for you and a sponsor.
Yeah, you know, you said, you know, the days of where you're located, right, is kind of irrelevant.
That's over.
You know, there was a time when geography played a factor there, right? As it related to how can I get you from where your hometown is to the game site
That's over.
without any problems, right? Well, because air travel now is just so seamless, it's just not a big deal anymore. So it doesn't really matter where you're located. Now, if guy lives in Hawaii or something.
And be careful what you ask for, though.
You know, there are some things, but the point is that geography, where you live, is less relevant now. It's not even relevant.
It's not relevant at all.
You can get from Harlingen to Houston, either and go anywhere, Houston or Dallas, Fort Worth, or anywhere. So you get there, right? And then I think the most important thing that James said was it's kind of like anything else in life. How do you get the job? Well, somebody said, you know what? I know Sergio. He's got a good work ethic. He's got good experience. He'll do a good job at your company. You have to have that habit, have that ambassador for now. All that person does is get you to the door.
Right.
Right. And what you do in this context is this advocate, this sponsor, this mentor can tell Curtis Shaw, this guy played the game and he's got a good feel. I think he's got a future as a basketball official. But he's just getting into Curtis Shaw. Now Shaw, I'm just using Curtis.
Right. Yeah, we know.
It could be any coordinator. Now has to see you in a camp setting, right? And they have to determine whether or not what your advocate said aligns with what they believe. And they're the ones that make the decision. It's a powerful guys. It's 5 or 6 guys like that.
And that's the good thing about it, is like there's brutal honesty, right? You know, that Phoenix camp, I had someone call and say, hey, I'm on such and such's court next. And I know that person really well. And I said, hey, you know, I sent the text message, so-and-so is on your court. Those are the kinds of things that are going on, right? Because this person aligned himself, he knows me. And so, you know, I think highly of him. I think he's good. I think he at least deserves a shot or an opportunity. I'm not the decision maker, but so he texted me and said, hey, I'm going to be on so-and-so's court next. And I shot a text to so-and-so and said, hey, these are my thoughts on this individual. Let me know what you think. So there's a lot of that's going on, to be honest with you.
And then the financial thing, Sergio, is it's a significant. You talk about investment, right? I mean, these camps are now what, $600? I don't even know if they are.
Yeah, $600-700.
Significant money involved in now officials wanting to go to a camp to be identified and potentially hired.
And they're competitive.
Yeah, when you get to the levels, the Division I men's basketball level or Division I women's basketball level now, which is exploding. That game is exploding. Right? It becomes extremely competitive.
Very.
Extremely competitive. And so you just have to you have to have some kind of self-appraisal process, or a mentor's got to tell you, look, man, how many times are you gonna write that $600 check? This dude was 20 years. Right?
Yeah, 20. I'm not kidding you. 20 years.
Go to camp and you're not getting hired, right? How many different consortium camps do you go to and you're not getting hired, right? You just have to have that self-awareness about whether or not it's just not going to happen, right? So for those of us that had the opportunity and the privilege to be able to work at that level, somebody stood up for us, and then we had to kind of perform, right? But at some point, you said, "Oh, you're going to have to make that decision. Am I going to write that check again, right? And be realistic, right?" But all of that aside, we're here this weekend to just get better at what we do as basketball officials. Don't
That's
we can take you there. You want to be an NBA official? Well, that's a different conversation, right? But you just have to think about, how do I continue to develop my skills and prepare myself for when I'm going to write that big check. And it starts at places like this.
That's exactly right. That's I mean, that's excellently put. I mean, this weekend is like where it begins, right? You got to come in every game and show up, right? And just so that you're not confused, once you get hired at Division I, you still got to go to camp. They still expect you to. They still expect. This is the first year that I don't have to go to anyone's camp. This is the first year, and I've been in Division I 9 or 10 years now. 10 years, yeah. And this is the first year that all my supervisors said, "You good? We're good. You don't have to go." So, don't think that it's just you go until you get hired. No, you still gonna go. So I got a lot of those. We call them $500-600 T-shirts. I got a lot of $600 T-shirts at my house in my drawer. So, yeah. So, good. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, man. All right.